I'm a Virginia girl at heart. I'm a wife, a mother, an author, and civility and event professor. One of my greatest joys is sharing ways that we can grace our homes and communities with love, kindness, goodwill, and hospitality. What I have come to know is that in order to share and love on people that I come in contact with, I must focus on my heart by consciously making an effort to practice daily routines that nurture and infuse my soul with joy, peace, and love. This in turn allows me to feed and love on my family and community. When I am at my best, I can give my best to everyone that I come in contact with. Heart, home, and community is the core of Gracing Up. So please come join with me as I walk through this journey as I share this art of gracious living. Hello, we are here today with Tricia Driscoll of Knotty Origami in her beautiful studio. Thank you so much for having us, Tricia. I love what you are doing. You have the most beautiful jewelry, and while we're here today, I want us to talk about how you got started, what you're doing. So we'll go through a bunch of questions and go through down the list. So, Tricia, I know that you were in the Army.
Yes.
So I want to know, how did you go from the Army to being a jewelry maker?
Well, that's my mother would like to know that too. But no, it was actually kind of a surprise. Okay. You know, I was in the Army for almost 10 years. Okay. I loved it. I loved the work. I loved the mission. It was something I always wanted to do. And while I was in the Army, I didn't really have a lot of time to be creative or artistic. And it wasn't until I made the decision to leave so that we could start our family. My husband and I were constantly, one place or another. Okay. And when I decided to leave, I went in and I started to do work for the government as a civilian, and that's where I had my children. Oh. So it wasn't until I had my children that I started to nurture their artistic. They're very artistic. They love painting and knotting and just doing creative things, and it really opened up my eyes to what I had within me that I actually never knew.
So you have two children.
I have two children. I have a girl and a boy, a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old. All right. And so I really credit them with opening up the idea that I actually was creative. Wow. And now I still sometimes, when someone says, "Oh, Tricia Driscoll is an artist or an artisan," it kind of still shocks me a little bit because of all those many years of thinking that I didn't have time for it or that I wasn't good at it.
So what did you do? Not to interrupt, but what did you do in the Army, though? I'm curious.
I was a military intelligence officer.
Oh, okay.
Like my father.
Okay.
And I always kind of knew that that's what I was going to do with my life. Wow. It was funny, I think when you're young, there are not many absolutes. I certainly didn't, when I was young, think I'm going to grow up and own a jewelry design business, which I'm very happy in my work now. But one thing I did know was I was going to wear combat boots. I was going to jump out of airplanes. Wow. I was going to do similar work that my father did. I was going to work to help defend our nation. I was so proud of what he did and what my grandfather did.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you
and
for your
service.
service.
It was such a absolute. Yeah. And so it was really hard to decide to leave that. But I knew that I also wanted to start a family. Wow. And even though a lot of people do that, and they do it very well. My best friend is now a lieutenant colonel. She's a judge in the Army. She has beautiful children. She's a great mother. I mean, people make it work. Right. But for me, it was right to move to a different course. And so with the jewelry, I actually was always more enthused by the knots and also origami. When I started out as a jewelry maker, I was making origami jewelry and hardening the origami and putting them into little metal boxes and attaching them to chains. I don't do as much of that anymore, but the knots really started out as a way to secure the paracord. You see those everywhere. It was just a very functional kind of bracelet.
And this is your beautiful jewelry that you're wearing.
This is what it has evolved into. But it started out as a simple, functional, practical thing that I wore around my wrist to store paracord. And then learning how to make jewelry became a necessity because that became the vehicle to convey the knot. Okay. And even now, everything that I do when I'm learning metalsmithing to fabricate my own hardware or wire work so I can create my own jump rings, all of these things are really the end state is to glorify the fiber product. The fiber knot work or braid work. And so when I started out, my intent was not necessarily to be a jewelry designer. It was to be a knot artisan.
Okay.
And the jewelry making was a necessity because people wanted, if I could have continued to make things that nobody ever wanted to adjust,
right,
I would have done that.
Right.
But people wanted to be able
like,
to
that's a
change the
beautiful knot.
lengths.
How can I put this on?
People wanted to have flexibility in the hardware,
right?
And so I had to necessarily learn.
Okay.
And so that's really where it came from. Is I started creating those things. People were interested in them, and then I realized this might be a viable business option.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your kids were a big inspiration for that.
They were. I mean, I started creating these things with them to teach them about their cultural, artistic identity.
Okay.
Because they come from a strong Irish American background.
Okay.
And I wanted to teach them the Celtic knots. Once the practical knots that I learned in the Army, rigging equipment or organizing my paracord to store properly. Once those things were demystified, then the decorative knots became much more accessible.
Wow. And just who would never think that? Being in the Army, you're learning these knots.
These
and that
things
you
are
can
very
apply
practical,
it.
but I remember, and I don't know that everyone has this kind of aha moment, but I remember looking at some duct tape and a chain and the paracord and thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to hold a vehicle under an aircraft as we transport it into combat. And it's a very minimal amount of equipment. You just have to know where to put it.
Right.
And how to secure it. And I remember thinking, this is amazingly functional and beautiful at the same time because it's simple. And it's essential. And that's really where my fascination with practical knots came. But I grew up in Korea seeing decorative, I used to have them in here, but I don't. Decorative knots hanging on the wall, hanging on the garments.
Okay.
And I never thought that would be something that could be deciphered. And so once the language, because there's a language to knotting.
Okay.
Once you learn that language, then those things become doable.
Okay, and you teach classes on that too, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I do teach classes. I can host classes in home for folks, but I actually have a workshop coming up with a wonderful makerspace in Alexandria, AR workshop. Alexandria. It's in March.
Okay.
And people can sign up.
And how do they find out about
Online
it?
there.
They can
go to the AR Workshop Alexandria website, and there's an actual event sign up there.
Okay.
And we're going to be making a piece very similar to the piece that I'm working on here today. But everyone will leave with a piece they create that's actually a pretty sizable piece. But so yes, I do teach. I teach jewelry classes. I teach knotting classes.
Okay, that's awesome that you're able to apply that. So you've been in business for 4 years.
Yes.
And so. And when you work out of your home space, we're here in your beautiful studio.
Yes.
So how do you, if you're in your home space, how do you get out there and market with people? What do you do?
Well, marketing. I would say that I rely very heavily on e-commerce and social media marketing. That's a very big arm of my marketing strategy because my referrals tend to come very heavily from places like Instagram.
Okay.
And I can see that data, that what's driving traffic to the website, what's converting those clicks into sales comes from leveraging social media and maximizing that.
Okay.
I try to leverage it in a way that I try to be smart about it. I do sometimes have to pay for paid advertising and promotions, but I try to keep up with the trends and leverage those networks to try to get the word out. And for me, it's also essential because marketing is also coincide with the feedback I get on what products I should offer.
Okay.
So a lot of times I will use those networks to test a new product before I actually offer it in the store. And based on the feedback that I get from people, that lets me know if this is something that's worth pursuing. Should I buy all the materials and invest in those materials? Should I offer it and put the energy?
So you're very analytical too. So you have
I
both
am, and that comes
sides
from the military.
That's big though. That's huge.
And
that's
huge. When I got my MBA, that was a really big aspect, and I enjoy that part. I think the greatest benefit of coming from a military background or coming from an intelligence and analytical background is the value that you learn comes from rational decision making. And not being, I love my work. It's very subjective.
Right.
But I think that, we have to be able to sit down and look at numbers and assess whether or not this is the right course.
Right.
And you know, if you're doing something purely subjectively for the love of it, it can almost become more of a hobby. But if you're trying to run a business, you have to be able to look at the numbers.
And you do have on Facebook, you have a great organization or great page that you run, Momprenurial.
Yeah. It's something I started a couple years ago. I think you're in it.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Great information too.
It's a cozy group. It's not this massive, you know, group. And I like it that way because it's a safe place for people to ask questions, that for people that have independent ventures, women primarily, that are starting an independent creative venture, to ask, you know, I have no idea what to do about my accounting. I'm just jotting it down on a piece of cardboard, or, you know.
And what do you think about Etsy?
It's a safe place for people to say, you know, what are you doing? How do I do this? And not feel like, oh, well, you know, you don't know this, you know. It's not the idea is that it's a place, it's ground zero for the dumbest questions we could possibly answer.
And I love it because everyone is quick without judgment. They're quick to kind of give their feedback for where they are. Yeah.
If anybody tells you that, you know, when you start a business that you know all of these answers.
Right.
How to price your product, how to value yourself and your work, how to network.
You just posted something on that.
I did, because I think that's very important, particularly for women, about when I first started out, someone would say to me, oh, I like that necklace. How much is it?
Right.
And I'm not kidding. I'm not proud of this. My first instinct was to say, oh, well, and I was undervaluing it. Oh, it's $28. Is that okay?
Yeah,
And I would ask, like, if permission to charge them and undervalue my product. And if I had ever gotten a huge demand for that product, I would have never been able to keep up at that price point. I would have never been able to put that product in a retail store and revenue share. I would have never been able to keep up with that demand, and I was still asking permission to charge that. And
so you're so, because you have to know your worth. I had a professor one time that told me back, and this is for event consulting, but it's like you have your hourly rate, even if you have to put it on your laptop. So when that person calls, this is my number. So you hold on to that number. That is that is
and
so
I think
awesome.
I think it's something you have to overcome. I think some men and women overcome it naturally. You know, but there's a confidence that comes, I think, and I think that the confidence is forged, at least it was for me, in a fire of knowing that if I don't value my labor and my overhead and my materials like I should, then I will become overwhelmed and unable to ever meet the demand. Because I'm undervaluing the product. And so I try to always keep an eye to a reasonable price, but and a fair price. But I always try to remember it's a business. It's not a hobby. It's a business. And it needs to be profitable. And so yes, I did just post a TED Talk to all the women to say, hey, you know, this is a major hurdle, but we can get over this.
So so GracingUp, it's really like your heart, your home, and your community. And so having your business, you're working from home. How do you balance the family part of it, and what the importance of that for you?
Well, I don't know if this is orthodox, but I know enough about myself to know that when I'm with my family, I need to be in with my family. I know enough that if I try to work and concentrate and build a speech, say, or a speaking engagement, and I'm working on a project, and my child comes and asks me to, you know, where the peanut butter is, that I might get upset. So I just don't do those things. I shield the time. If they are home, I try to shield that time. I maximize the time they're at school. So it is a blessing that they are both school age now, and so the entire time they're at school, that is my focus time to work. I often work, like last night, this wall hanging is due to ship today. I worked on it. They went to bed at 9. I worked on it from 9 until I was done. But I didn't do it while I was with them,
and I think that's an encouraging word even for women that are at home, because you're trying to start that business, and you're trying to kind of balance it all. It gets kind of tricky, and I've been there. I have been there, but I wasn't as good as that when my kids were younger, because it's like if I was trying to write a book, and I never forget Lauren was like, "Mom, it felt like you were writing that book for 5 years, but it wasn't that long." But you know,
it's a good book though.
But what happens is that, you know, it's important. So I'm glad for that encouraging word. So what about that woman that's sitting here
and watching this show, and they're like, you know what, I have that craft, or I have that gift that I want to be able to put into something as a business, and it's a creative business, and I want to do it from home. How would you encourage them to take that leap and get started?
I personally never had the problem of just getting started. You know, for me, it almost is reckless. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to learn how to do it.
Right.
But I have seen some immensely talented people. They have more talented than me, you know, even in the same craft space. You know, they're amazing. But sometimes folks wait for all the conditions to be set. They want all the research to be done. They want all of the platforms and the infrastructure to be ready to go, so we can. It's a perfectionism that can be crippling. And I think that the best advice, I wouldn't necessarily tell people to do it the way I did it, you know, where it's just, I'm going to make this work, I'll figure it out. You know, I don't know that that's the best way to do it, but there was a lot of hard learning.
But you have to take that leap.
There were some expensive mistakes in that approach. You know, I probably could have done well to do a little more research. A little more. But I do think that, you know, you just got to do it. It's like that Nike commercial. You just do it. Because even now, 4 years into it, there are improvements that need to be made on my website, or there are improvements that need to be made to the branding, or there's improvements to be made to inventory management. And there's always going to be something that needs your attention. And it's better to make these micro improvements once you start. But you just have to start.
So do you run the whole operation by yourself?
I do. I'm still in that phase. I'm in that phase. Now what I have graduated to is, you know, Gretchen.
Right?
Gretchen sometimes comes on and she does freelance work for me. And I've had an intern.
Gretchen was Lauren's tutor. She's awesome.
She's amazing. She's so organized, which is my language, you know, and she was just amazing. So I bring people on during periods of high demand. I'm hoping that this is the year that I can train a dedicated person to help me during the high season is October to January. That's my actual surge. And so my goal is to have somebody trained starting in the spring and all the way through to be ready for this next year.
So during this time of January, when you go through your lower periods, what do you do? Are you doing just kind of creating at this point?
Well, I am creating. What I'm doing now is meeting orders. Like these orders are heading out today, so I just meet the as they come in orders. But this is the time that I'm focusing on things like workshops. So I have a workshop coming up in March. I have another workshop I'm doing for the Carried to Full Term moms. That's part of the charity work that we do.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that too. With you, because I saw this on your website too, but you do, some of your jewelry goes back to the local community, and that's huge. So tell me about that real quick.
You know, I remember in graduate school learning about something called conscious capitalism, and they used examples like the Container Store and other stores that had started to incorporate community-based giving back programs in there, you know, as part of their business strategy. They're part of their business strategy. And I always thought, you know, that to me is amazing. And even though I'm a small business and I'm not able to donate perhaps at that level, my very first year in business, I was only able to donate $50. And I aim to donate at least 5% of the profits, sometimes more. That's a minimum. 5% of the profits go to a local nonprofit. I often donate a little bit more than that. But the first year, all I had to give was $50. And I remember almost apologizing. You know, there was a lot of apologizing that first year. Is this price okay? You know, is this donation okay? You know, and I got a note back, and it was to Voz de Niños, which is a CASA program, Court Appointed Special Advocate program in Texas, where there was a lot of sad stories. And what they wrote me was, "Thank you for this. This is going to create a bag of products that a child who has aged out of our program can take into the world." And I thought, oh, that's something.
You know? That was that moment. You're just like, look, whatever I give, it can make a difference.
But, you know, it did something. And thankfully, every year we've been able to donate more than that, and more than that, and more than that. It's grown. Since then, we sponsored a different nonprofit each year. One year we donated, oh gosh, I don't remember, it was $100 or $150 to the barn. It wasn't much, it wasn't a huge profit. We donate every time we have what's the word I'm looking for? Awareness products. So breast cancer awareness. We have some products for Duane syndrome awareness for mothers that had asked for certain products to be created. Epilepsy awareness. Those products, 5% of that goes to Boston Children's Hospital. So every year, 5% of those products go straight to Boston Children's.
Wonderful.
And now our current Sherry, we've done work with veterans that suffer with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder, teaching them workshops, providing materials, but also we donated money one year from our profits to that organization. Now the organization we sponsor is right down the street in Haymarket. It's carried to full term.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And this is our second year of working with them. And in addition to just donating part of our profits each year, which we recently did an auction. Where I did a maker demo.
Yeah.
And all the people from the community that helped contribute to this piece. I didn't want to sell this piece that had been collectively made, not by me, and keep the profits. So I thought, we'll auction this off to a nonprofit. But the bottom line was, we were able to auction that off, give the proceeds to carry to full term. And then in the next month, we'll be teaching a workshop to the moms there.
Which is beautiful.
The idea is that, if they have questions about how to set up an e-commerce shop, or even just how to start a business, or to try to give them ideas about what avenues they can take as they try to get on their feet to provide for their children as they're going to school, as they're
it's a lot.
doing things.
But it's giving them that option that if they have that talent that they want to be able to sell things, they can do that.
And there is a little store there, so they'll be able to sell what they make.
That's awesome.
And on another note,
it's a home. It's
a home. It's a maternity home for mothers and their babies, and so they actually have shelter, and they receive resources for how to get on their feet and take and self-care and take care of their children. And so one of the aspects is not just teaching them how to knot a macrame hanging or how to stamp a piece of metal jewelry. It's to teach them that they can too start their own business, or if they want to do something on the side to augment the work that they're doing full time, or if this is a relaxing thing, or hey, you don't need to buy that jewelry. It's a lot cheaper if you
just
make
go
it.
And make it.
Let me show you how to do it so that you have something to wear to the interview, and it's that kind of interaction.
So as we're wrapping up, how would people get in contact with you? How can they find your jewelry? Are you in stores? I know you're in stores.
Yes.
What stores are you in locally?
Locally, we're in Enlightened Styles. We have a lot of stamped products and at Enlightened Styles in Warrenton. We are in the Byrne Gallery in Middleburg, and that's where you'll see some of the more artistic pieces, more
beautiful
involved
gallery.
pieces. We're also in Scout and Molly's One Loudon. You'll tend to find knots or beaded tassels there. We are in a shop in Northern Ireland. If you're ever traveling to Northern Ireland, called the Curvy Girl. And we're about to, in March, partner with AR Workshop Alexandria, where we're going to be teaching the workshop. So we'll have some pieces in the gift shop there.
See, so you're expanding. And so what's your website?
http:// Knotty-origami.com. But you can find us more easily if you just run basic searches on social media for our handle, which is @KnottyOrigami.
Spell it out just so.
KNOTTYORIGAMI.
Perfect.
And then also the hashtag Knotty Origami. And so on any of the social media platforms, you should be able to kind of hone in on where we are based on those hashtags or those handles.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having us in your studio. And Knotty Origami, go visit her because she's absolutely beautiful, and her jewelry is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
thank you for coming. Together with our fingers, right? Now we're going to pull the cord in the back through. And we're going to push the cord on top through. Then we tighten up. Okay. So now what we've done.
We just kind of. Is that it?
It is. We've just got to pull all the pieces. So what you've done now is you've connected these two. Now, then these two would be connected. And two cords in.
And then it connects it all.
Different knotting configurations, of course, can be done. It changes the pattern completely. But with this one, we would simply you know, take the 2 cords from here and the two cords from here, and then
Okay.
continue
And then
going.
just kind of do that
but
same
we're going to do
process.
that all the way down until we create this chevron.